promised, Mr. Stephon Baines. He is an activist in New York City, specifically in the Bronx, doing work around issues relating to law enforcement, treatment of Black and brown bodies in this city. Most recently, as I said in the lead up to our interview right now, Mike Rosado, 24-year-old father, young man, was shot and killed by NYPD officers in the 46th precinct on August 29th, 2021. There have been protests since that occurrence. If anyone is unfamiliar with this case, just, you can Google Mike Rosado, 46th precinct, officer involved shooting, things like that. And you'll see different stories in the media about the murder of Mr. Rosado. It was a different type of case because it was at night. It was off-duty officers. It was in the confines of the 46th precinct where Mr. Rosado ended up being murdered and his father being arrested. So much has occurred in this shorter period of time. And I'm not really clear, but Mr. Baines has been out there standing with the family. And that is why I thought I would bring him on so that we can get another perspective other than what we are seeing in the media. Why is this important to me? It's important to me because I believe that as a clergy person, my responsibility is first to the community because they are the people who come in and out of these churches, synagogues, and temples, Islamic temples, Buddhist temples, Hindu, whatever the faith is. The people rely upon clergy to be their voices when we go back and forth to high-level meetings or low-level meetings and precinct meetings with the NYPD. It is a tightrope that we walk because sometimes the community does not trust us because we do support the cops and their work on behalf of the community. And then the other side of that rope is that the NYPD may often want clergy to just be there and stand with them without even giving us enough information to say, oh, okay, this makes sense, or oh, okay, I can or I can't do this. And so we find ourselves in the middle sometimes between the clergy, between the NYPD and the community. For me, I can only speak for me, Deborah Jenkins. I'm usually going to err on the side of standing with the community because long after the violence has occurred, the family is still in need and is still grieving. And so that's why I brought Mr. Baines on today to speak about it from one who has been advocating for this family to receive justice or just simple answers to the questions that they have, and who has been a part of the protests that have been being organized in the Bronx. And they are well-attended protests. So I don't know why this has not been picked up nationally yet, but let's talk about it with Mr. Stephon Baines. Welcome to Black Talk Platform, Stephon. Can you get into a little bit more about this case as you know it from your perspective, please?
Hello, thank you for having me on the platform. I think it is definitely very unfortunate that this young man has passed away. And when this incident had first happened, fortunately, Cop Watch was able to see some of the angles that were important and that is going to give this man the justice he needs. When this thing first happened, the first thing that happened was there was reporting that was done on behalf of the NYPD, many different media outlets. The reporting that you see on the news is that you see someone shoot it at the police. The New York Daily News put them on a front cover and said, father and son shootout with the NYPD. Father picks up gun and finishes the shootout between them and the NYPD. So with that being said, this case was perpetuated to be a shootout between two individuals, which was a father and son, and with police. As in, when you think about a shootout, you think about two people who keep constantly engaging. It sounds like the father picked up the gun from the son and started shooting at the police after the son was in a shootout with the police and he was shooting. These things are not true. That did not happen at all. I know that might sound pretty interesting and dramatic, but it was simply something that was totally different. And the number one reason why I stand with the family and support the family, and we've been through this, is because I definitely think that the family needs to be counseled through this whole situation. There was a life taken away. It was very unfortunate. There was misrepresentation of Mikey Rosado, a big, huge misrepresentation. His name was defamed. There was something that did happen. There was an incident that occurred, but I truly believe because something happens and someone makes a mistake, I don't think someone deserves to die for their mistake. I do believe that he did not want to die. I also believe that the situations that was going on, not too many people are aware of the many dangers that was happening. We need to know the officers' names that were involved, and we need an unbiased investigation. They have already convicted and prosecuted this guy through the media and the father. So I think it's very important that we looked at this objectively. And if there were mistakes, point that out. If there's any way we can make things better, point it out. Currently, the family is still crying, is still going through pain. And the case as it stands right now is supposed to be being picked up by the Attorney General, we hope. Also, there has been no update between the officers' names, the evidence. There has actually been no type of update between the communication and the police and the family. And I think that's one of the biggest issues.
Wow. Okay. So my condolences to the Rosado family. And as I said in the first part of the interview before you came on of the show tonight, and I think I just said it now, I feel like it is the family who is most in need here. I think we all want people to rally around us when people go through what the Rosados are going through right now. And they appreciate you and everyone else who's been standing with them in protest and in asking these questions. But I feel that we're missing something that's so important, and that is caring about them. I'm skeptical about the camps being drawn. It is not, in my opinion, or it should not be, the NYPD versus the community. They should care, and the clergy should care about the loss of life here. Like you just said, there are so many details that we may not be aware of, but I do agree this young man did not want to die. I'm sure he did not want to die that night. Now, just to let the audience know, like Stephon said, the first video I saw was on the WPIX news program that evening after it happened. It just seemed like Dodge City to me, just shooting. And because the officers were off duty, they weren't in uniform. So it's really not clear from my vantage point as to who was shooting whom, And then I did receive a video later, and I reached out to the NYPD to find out what's going on. What is this? And then I saw the video. From what I could see, because on the video, if you go and look on WPIX now, and it's similar to what Stephon was saying about the Daily News front page story, they circle and let you see who the officers are. But the question he just asked is, why don't we have the names of the officers? So I don't know, but according to the WPIX report, they circled who is supposed to have been the officers. Video that I saw, I think it might have been from Cop Watch, I'm not sure, but it's a citizen's video. They were talking in the background. They were sort of saying who these are the officers. This is the young man. This is his dad. And so, but if you don't know them, you don't know them. Why can't the questions be answered to begin to satisfy the family, so that they can start to get some answers? I am happy that they are calling on the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, to investigate this matter, because I'm not sure if the proper representation is going to be given to Mr. Rosado. As Stephon just told us, he's sort of been demonized in this story, and people are forgetting he lost his life. So where do we go from here, Stephon?
I think the only way to go from here is to continue to have protests and rallies. Definitely stand in solidarity to make everybody remember it's Mikey's name. And this is just going to be the beginning. We want to stop the violence in the community, period. That includes black on black crime. And I think we can use this example to bring the community together to stop crime and also to solve police brutality. As it stands right now, I don't think there's nothing we can do to change the mindset and to change the way police treat people in the community. Whether if he was a criminal or he could participate in criminal acts, if he didn't shoot the gun out of the air, if he didn't have a gun at all, and the police did shoot him, this case would be justified no matter what the issue is. And you can see how this case is partaking, why that is true. Many of the other cases in the Bronx, so many different cases of police shootings are always justified. When they came out with the story, they came out with it exactly maybe the next morning or the next business day, and they created their own story behind it without even letting the people know what really happened. Mikey, that only one person can have a gun. There was only one gun.
Okay.
So as it stands, it's either they're gonna say Mikey was shooting or the father was shooting simultaneously, or one person had the gun and one person didn't. Maybe the gun was passed around once or twice, but if you look at the video footage, they only show one person shooting at a cop, and that one person was not Mikey, and they said that Mikey shot at the cops. So that was very misleading for them to do, and I really think there should be a civil matter on that. I really think they need to prove whoever shot the gun and who did not shoot the gun. I think they need to prove their innocence, and they also need to take legal action, whether that's criminal charges for reckless endangerment, because the fact of the matter is someone died, and there were multiple police officers shooting and airing out one whole corner. If I was on that corner, I think I will also pursue a civil matter against the NYPD for reckless endangerment. If you see somebody next to me and they do not have a gun, do not shoot me. Even if you thought they did have a gun. We need better community protection. We need better protecting policies and strategies that actually protect us from people that actually care about us, not people who have targets on our back and can't wait to see somebody with a gun on, can't wait to get engaged with in a shootout in our community. Maybe if there was a guy who was insane, but even then, we all know all the time that if you are somebody who practices public safety and you're actually trying to implement that in a neighborhood, you have to be very cautious at what you shoot at and who you shoot at, because you can hit anybody. So I think where we go with this case is civil matters. I think they need to clarify Mikey's name. I think they need to come for definitely hard on this, because there is a case of reckless endangerment and murder by one of these off-duty cops. And it's very important that the district attorney looks at this in a civil way. I know if I was there, I would definitely be looking at it in a civil way as well, because I don't want nobody shooting at me just because they believe or think somebody had a gun, because they shot the wrong person. And that's where they screwed up. So I think from here, they look at civil matters, and they also look at clarifying Mikey's name. If people want to say, hey, this guy had a gun, he shot it in the air, so they don't want to support him, and they think he deserves to die for shooting in the air, and he ran away with his hands up, that's okay. They can think what they want. But when it comes to policing in our neighborhoods, that's not the proper representation we want. So we need to come at these officers civilly. and criminally. That was negligent. You don't shoot at a corner with women and children on there.
I love it. I love the way you put it. Now, on both sides, right? What about the violence from the protesters against the cops? Do you really think that? I feel that I've been to a whole lot of protests. I've been in a lot of large groups where the majority of the people at those protests, they stay on code. They know why they're there, demanding justice. But there are always some who really go there. So I did see a video where people were trying to break the police line, and that's not the kind of protest that's going to get us to the answers that this family deserves. Do you have any opinion about that?
Well, as from someone who has been protesting for a while, for years, many of us, Black Lives Matter chapter, Cop Watch, many of the protesters you did see there, and maybe even the ones who who are new there. This opinion only represents my own opinion. It doesn't represent anyone else's opinion. So I'm only speaking for myself, just to be clear on that.
Sure.
In particular, when it comes to what violence is at a protest. I've never ever seen peace get things done in the last year when it comes to police brutality, and even in years and years beyond that. I think what has brought attention to this case is the fact that the police want to perpetuate us as violent criminals, and I think that's what they would like to do. But they didn't know when they did that they were also spreading attention for Mikey Rosado's case. Yeah. Last time we checked, when we had a press conference, the day after Mikey was killed, there was some news stations there covering, and the family said, we need justice and we need answers. And their answers were not met. And they were very peaceful. Nothing happened, nothing went on. We didn't get aired 1,000 times in a day. Nobody reached out to the family, particularly the day that there was a commotion in front of the precinct. There was some barricades, jumped over. When those individuals had arrived to the precinct, the police and the people were not able to be on the same page. The police were justifying the actions. They're still justifying the actions, and they didn't take us seriously. And my years of understanding is that you have police officers, right? I don't know if you've ever spoken to a police officer and you understand police officers' nature, but when protests and actions happen, they defend each other, they justify each other, they stand together. Some of them even make fun of us. Some of them want to manipulate us, and they hate us. For the most part, you can expect most officers to participate in very dirty policies and dirty actions. You can expect that. I myself have witnessed that on June the 29th. I learned the hard way. I thought that being peaceful, being appropriate, and just standing and marching was actually the way that we are to get justice. But what I learned that day is that this is an extremely dirty fight. And I wasn't aware of the things that go on behind closed doors because I was arrested. I was arrested and tackled while I'm leading a group. I was charged for assaulting an officer, and I was also beat up at the same time. All police officers are very violent and passive. They will smile in your face and commit harm and manipulate the law to defame your character, to put you in jail. These are the things that cops do on a daily basis. Many of the cops have allegations. 50% of the officers in that precinct have more than one allegation. Many of those cops are dirty and have allegations, and many of those cops do not care to console and stand with the family. And if violence happens, the only thing they're there to do is to perpetuate that violence as us as criminals. So what do I think about that happening? Yeah. I think that violence is not the way, but I also believe that being peaceful is not the way, and it's never gotten any justice. Who has ever said, then we were peaceful and that happened and it worked? Being peaceful worked. Being peaceful and marching and kumbaya, it has never worked. The only thing that works is the district attorney landing charges.
Right. So, but just let me just say this, and I don't have any problem with anything you've just said. That's why I asked you your position on it. When someone can clearly define the issues like you just did for me, right? In this particular case, and even as it relates to your own situation back in June. I believe revolution doesn't take place without bloodshed. In this case, the blood that has been shed is already Mikey's, right? So now we want to get beyond that and get some accountability, right? We want accountability. But I do find it problematic when people as smart as you are, a leader in a movement, would be taken out of the voice, out of being in a position to voice these concerns on behalf of justice and on behalf of this family because of violent or inappropriate protest.
Inappropriate behavior. In this particular sense, was this violence? People shuck up the barricade. Is that
I don't know
violence?
if it was violent. I maybe forgive me for using the word violent. No.
But
Did anyone get arrested?
Concept. Mm-hmm. People not behaving as well as the NYPD would like them to behave as. It's really important that we understand that the only reason why this thing made the news is because there were people shaking up the fence. Now, is that a problem? Or is the violence or the aggression the bigger problem? Because we got a result out of doing something like a little bit rowdy, which is shaking up barricades, and maybe put some of the officers on edge and even scared a few officers. However, was the outcome something that we regret just from shaking up barriers? That's all that was happening, is shaking up barriers. You can see the people just moving around the police barrier.
I saw it.
Obstructing our pathway into the police precinct.
Okay.
No, we can't even protest properly. Protest doesn't always have to be how the government wants us to protest, and that's what they have been trying to do.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. But here we are, what is it, 10 days later after his murder, and those basic questions that the family is asking aren't being answered. So, and I don't believe that regardless of how the protesters behave, right? Those are questions that still need to be answered, and this family needs to have them answered. And so now, the family is calling on the New York State Attorney General. Is there any responsibility or is there any desire to have the Bronx District Attorney do anything in regards to Mike's case?
I don't think the Bronx I think the Bronx District Attorney is in cahoots with the police. I think our goal is to get a new Bronx District Attorney and get district attorneys who are unbiased and unpaid by police officers.
Yeah.
Many of our politicians have accepted charity donations, campaign donations for their position, or they have such strong relationships that there are so many conflict of interest that it'd be almost impossible to get an unbiased decision made. And when I mean unbiased, a decision someone can make without knowing that they have any relationships with anybody, actually be in support of the community.
Yeah, but she still has a responsibility to this family. Does she not? I mean, I don't know about the elections when she's up for reelect. I don't know any of that. But right now, Darcel Clark is our district attorney. She has a responsibility to the family, I believe, to answer these. These are big. I'm trying to figure out who should be answering these questions. I believe it's not necessarily the cops. It's not them, right? But it is the district attorney. Someone should be answering these questions or beginning a dialogue to get these questions answered?
Well, I do know in a Lamar Arbery case, the district attorney was charged
Yeah.
because she was not handling the case appropriately. And we see the same exact thing happening here. The district attorney is standing with the cops. She probably has a bunch of pictures with these same cops who killed Mikey. And maybe they have a relationship together. Who knows? I'm not saying they do or don't. But we understand the nature of the current system that we have right now, that some district attorneys are in cahoots with the police officers and the people who are affiliated with this system.
Most definitely that district attorney in the Ahmaud Arbery case. She was, I mean, you could see that she was dirty from the beginning. I don't see that with Darcel Clark. In fact, the cops have not always been friendly towards her because she is not friendly towards them when it comes to these cases coming before her, whether it's traffic or whatever. She has a really good community record. So I'm going to give her props there, but I still say she owes the family, I think she owes the family some answers. These simple questions that they're asking, somebody owes them answers. And I don't feel like it needs to wait until the attorney general decides whether or not she'll take the case. How does this family begin to get the answers? And this is just us going back and forth because I don't really know who is responsible, but I do believe she has some responsibility.
The district attorney, she might have a good reputation with the community, but our standards are kind of different than they were a few years ago. So yes, you know, community relations have been improved, but we was able to see over this past year that many of the people in the system allowed a lot of things to happen that wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And she was one of them. Many of our politicians, there's a few judges and district attorneys. A lot of people were locked up that weren't supposed to be locked up, and we expected more from our district attorneys than our cases being dropped. Many people in the Bronx were locked up for breaking curfew during a protest last year, in which the police kettled hundreds of protesters and arrested hundreds of protesters for crimes that they did not commit. But did we hear multiple officers going to jail for falsely pressing charges on protesters? No, we did not. And this is someone who you're saying has really good community relations. I would like to see the amount of cops that she put in jail for last year's protests. Many of those officers assaulted people, professionals, teachers, people who had careers with no criminal backgrounds, just coming outside and putting their hands up, were kettled and beat by the police. And how many of these police officers were apprehended? Now, I know she has a good community and she might be against the police, but we have higher expectations for the people who are protecting us in 2021 to 2022 versus 2007. Maybe she would have been someone who was better and is more out there. But in 2021, we have Alvin Bragg, who has been leading many of the charge, having an objection against the police and actually holding them accountable and ready to charge people by any means necessary for any criminal activity. And to really stand with the people for the most part. Now, there are people out here committing crimes. The moment we commit a crime for things that we don't even do, we have to see the judge for that. I think a lot of these officers need to start seeing the judge. And this is what we're expecting from our district attorney, not for them to jump to the side of the police because we assume they're doing the right thing.
That's fair. That's why I brought you on. Because when you made that analogy between 2007 and now, the difference, this is true. And so we have to look at those records as they stand now. However, Stephon, this family still needs answers. I think I've said that maybe 5 times.
Yeah.
Those answers they lie within the system, right? Either from the NYPD or the district attorney. This family deserves these answers to their questions. And so you said no one, to your knowledge, at least up to this point, from those 2 entities have reached out to this family. what do you think? And I know you can't necessarily speak on their behalf, but as a leader, as a community activist, what do you think the next steps should be in Mike Rosado's case in terms of accountability?
Well, just to throw a little bit more trash on the district attorney, not to shit on him, but you know, there are cops in that precinct with 35 allegations. I wonder what the district attorney thinks about that. I really would like to know how good her reputation is when it comes to against the police. Now, with that being said, the police do not like a lot of the district attorneys, but last time I checked, Vanessa Gibson and many of them have stood with them, hold hands with them many of the time. So yes, they do have that love and hate relationship because we expect more, but that love and hate relationship is just like someone who's broken up with their wife and they're getting back together.
So you're saying that
were you able to hear me?
I did. I heard you.
Yeah.
Broken.
So
yeah, like a marriage.
But that's that. But I definitely think the next step is we need to be more stern about who we allow to be police officers. I think this is something that is showing like maybe we need to look at how they are treating the violence in our neighborhoods. Are they just out there slinging guns when the time is right and throwing cuffs on to everybody they see needs fit? Or are they out there genuinely listening to the people concerns? I think these issues need to be raised. I think there should definitely be some legislation passed because of this incident.
Yeah.
I also believe that the Attorney General needs to come down hard and lay the facts out on the case. I think the next step is, what did Mikey Rosado do? Did he shoot or did he not shoot?
Yeah.
Because on paper and on video, on our video that me and you looked at, if you piece all of the videos together, is there a case on Mikey Rosado? Did he shoot at police? Because in the video footage that we see, he is not shooting at police ever. And they keep repeating, or they keep trying to insinuate that this man was shooting at police.
Yeah. I think it's a case that doesn't need to go away. I'm happy that there are the protests that are going on because his name is being amplified in the community. I still would love to know, and I know you can't answer this necessarily, it's just a question I'm throwing out there. What, if anything, can be done to support this family in this great time of loss? Well, in the short term, because this is a case that's going to go through the system, right? It's going to have to go through the process, and it might take some months. But what can be done for them right now in this moment?
They have a GoFundMe. We can raise awareness to release the names. Make this police precinct release the names of the officers who committed those acts of negligence. We would like to know the history of the police in between those two officers. I think that's a short term.
Okay, so
and you can have protests, and also they have a GoFundMe as well.
Okay, so we want to in this recording, we want to share the GoFundMe for this family so that people can donate to support this family. And I believe there needs to be voices who stand with this family in asking for the names of the police officers who are. You can't hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. So that this family can begin to feel as if they will be able to get the answers that they need. So what I'm hearing Stephon say is that there's a GoFundMe set up to support this family after Mike Rosado. Mike left a child here, I understand. So we want to support them through the GoFundMe page. They're asking, the family is asking for the release of the names of the officers. I honestly, personally don't know the process, but I think that's very basic, a basic request. And that as you, the audience of Black Talk Platform, continue to hear about the protests that are being planned in support of this family receiving these answers about the officers who are responsible for his death, that if you have time, you are able to go out and stand with this family in protest. Now, I'm pretty sure.
Which has been peaceful lately. There was a protest yesterday, and it was very peaceful.
Very peaceful. Okay.
Very peaceful.
And I'm not trying to sanitize how protests go. Sometimes they get out of hand. They get out of hand on both sides. And then one side, and it's usually the community that bears the responsibility for it getting out of hand. I get it. So I don't want the audience to go away from here thinking that the protests have been just violent. They haven't.
Yeah.
And they haven't been violent. And then so however we define violence.
There's been three protests, funeral and rally protests. One of them were violent. Not violent, but one of them, somebody
it was heated.
Yeah, somebody took a barricade off because they seen some of the officers joking around about it. So, at that point, I guess people felt like they weren't being taken serious. And sometimes you need to let them let the people know how serious this is.
Yeah.
Well, how
and no one was arrested, right? No one was arrested.
We don't know as of yet. I heard through the grapevine there was some threats made about a few people being arrested. But the NYPD, they're constantly harassing and monitoring and doing other things they can do to seek retribution and revenge for some of the disturbances we do make. At all times, the cops are always trying to build cases against many of the leaders. So anything they can get, they do try to execute if it's convenient for them.
And that's unfortunate, because if we're going to continue to be told that we have to stand with our officers, the good ones, I'm still waiting for all the good ones to come out and speak against any of the bad ones. I mean, that's not just here in New York, that's nationwide and worldwide. I want to see the good cops step up and say, we're not going to tolerate our names being sullied by the bad ones. That doesn't happen at all unless people are retired, and that's when it starts to happen. But we want to continue to support this family as they continue to fight for justice. Listen, I'm pretty sure that anyone who's watching, who is 100% in any case, it doesn't matter, in support of law enforcement, you're not going to like tonight's Black Talk platform. It's really okay with me. I'm okay if you never come back again. I don't think that this death should go unnoticed, and that his voice and his life should not be amplified. So kudos to Stephon Baines, to Black Lives Matter New York City or Bronx, and their leaders for galvanizing the Bronx. Because guess what? They are doing the work, and they do more than protest. They do more than organize for protest. And that's why I like Black Lives Matter New York, because they're actually helping people in their daily situations. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah. So I think they sort of set themselves apart from that global group. And I said that earlier too. But we're going to end our interview now. I thank you so much, Stephon, for being on with me. Please hang around after I end this, and we will see you all next week if you desire to come back. God bless you all.
All right. Thank you.